What is up, guys? I'm Silas Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here to educate you on health, fitness, social well-being. And today, guys, I'm going to be taking you through how to properly perform the Pendlay row. A lot of you have requested that I do this ever since you've seen that the Pendlay row is one of the main 4 movements that I'm focusing on, along with bench, squat, and deadlift. So, going to go ahead and break that down because I'm actually doing Pendlay rows right now. This is my actual Monday workout. So, I'm going to go ahead and take you guys through that. Now, I understand that a lot of you have also requested that I do a video over dips, and I will be sure to do that for you guys. But Pendlay row, actually, believe it or not, is probably gonna be a little bit easier to break down for you guys. So, gonna first and foremost kind of explain the benefits of the movement, as I always try to do, and then take you guys through the breakdown of the movement itself, just because it does no good to know how to properly perform a movement if you don't really know what it's for. So, like most rows, yes, Pendlay row is a back-focused movement. You're gonna be working your back, you're gonna be working your lats, and even your lower back is gonna be helping you with stability. Now, it's nowhere near as much pressure on your lower back as a traditional bent over row, and there's not as much momentum with the bent over row. I know a lot of you have expressed to me that whenever you're doing bent over rows, you feel like you're using too much momentum. You don't have to worry about that with the Pendlay row because it's a very explosive movement in nature. You guys know that I've kind of briefly touched on this before, but it has excellent carryover to your deadlift and even your bench press. Why? Well, because it's pretty much the opposite. Like it's the movement that's opposite in nature of the bench press, especially if you do pause bench presses, because with the bench press, you're gonna come down and pause on your chest and then you're gonna press forward. With the Pendlay row, you're starting in the opposite position like with the row, but you're pulling from a stagnant position the same way that you're pushing from a stagnant position with pause bench press. It has excellent carryover to the deadlift just because of the position you're in, especially if you pull conventional. It has great carryover if you pull sumo too, just because you're still gonna have the main cues such as creating torsion with your feet, hinging at the hips, pulling slack out of the bar, but just the positioning you're in is very much similar to the deadlift. So for those of you who have trouble getting in position for your deadlifts, this is gonna help you out a lot as far as that. And all in all, yeah, it's a great mass builder for the back. A lot of people are under the impression that, you know, bend over barbell rows may be superior just because, oh, but with Pendlay rows, you don't work the eccentric, so you're not getting as much bang for your buck. But the reality is, you can work the eccentric with Pendlay rows, just like you can work on the eccentric with deadlifts, but it's all about how much weight you're using. If you're working with the movement on a higher intensity type day, then you're probably gonna wanna, like, you know, just stick to focusing on the explosive part of it and simply just bringing the weight back down. If you're working like for more volume, maybe you're doing like higher reps, lighter weight, then by all means control the eccentric. That's what you guys have seen. That's part of my program on Mondays. It's pretty much like heavier. I just focus on the concentric portion of the motion, and then on Thursdays on my pull focus day, it's lighter weight and it's a controlled eccentric. So you can definitely do both. Personally, I think there's nothing wrong with doing both Pendlay rows and bend over barbell rows, but if I had to choose one, probably the Pendlay row, just because it has better performance carryover for me in terms of pulling from a stagnant position, really having to be explosive, and just the carryover it has to other movements. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Let's get into the movement itself now. So the first thing that we want to focus on is, of course, foot placement. Like most movements, everything starts from the ground up. So first thing, just like with the conventional deadlift, where your feet are going to be positioned, we don't want them too wide. We don't want them too close. You want to be right in that position that you would be in if you're about to do a box jump. That's going to be your power position. So for me, that's about right here. Now, as far as like where the bar is in relation to your foot, just like the conventional deadlifts, we don't want to be too far back. We don't want to be up too close. We want to be right about mid-foot. Now, mind you, once again, as we talked about, guys, this may seem like it's a bit more than mid-foot from this angle in this position, but that's only because when we are from this upward position, we're pretty much just focused on this part of the foot. But we have to think about the foot in its entirety. So cutting the foot about midway. Once you're in that foot position, we want to focus on creating torsion with our feet. So what I mean by that is, rather than just having my feet totally straight, I basically want to think of my feet as hooks, right? And I'm trying to hook my feet into the ground. So I'm gonna twist them, create torque, and therefore I'm creating torsion on my feet, and that's just gonna make me a lot more stable. I wanna be able to feel the ground through my pinky toe, my big toe, and my heels. The way that my coach Nsima puts it is, think of your feet as tripods. And that, you know, if obviously if one leg of the tripod is off, then you're gonna be unbalanced. So you wanna create that torsion with your feet, and you're gonna feel it, especially when you start hinging at the hips. That's gonna be the main point you're feeling it. So this is just my feet normal, then as you guys are gonna see, I'm creating torsion, boom. And I'm pretty much just, look, it's that tightness, that twisting motion of the feet. But I'm not letting my feet come out. I'm keeping my feet in position to create that tightness, making my feet become that hook. All right, guys, so the next thing that we want to focus on is making sure that we are hinging at the hips to get to the bar, rather than simply bending over to get to the bar. I'm going to show you guys the difference as I explain hip hinge. So what a lot of people do is they'll get their feet in position, right? feet's in good position, they're creating torsion, but rather than hinging at the hips to get to the bar the same way with the deadlift, they literally just bend over. As you guys can see, this puts me in a very rounded position. Now, granted, you can start this way and then kind of get into the proper position, but it's just a lot harder than if you actually hinge at the hips in order to get in the correct position. Let me show you guys just from the back angle as well, so you understand exactly what I mean. So, this is if I just bend over to the bar. Clearly rounded, clearly not in the best position for pulling. So, what you want to do is hinge at the hips. So, what I'm going to do, once again, another great cue that from my coach is to imagine that there's a drawer behind you and you're hinging at the hips. You're just trying to focus on sticking your butt out in order to close that drawer. So rather than simply bending over, I'm focusing on my back's nice and tight. I'm focusing on just hinging at the hips, pushing back with my hips, pushing back with my butt, until I'm at the position where my hands can touch the bar, like so. And that's the main thing we want to focus on, is just that hinging at the hips in order to get to the bar rather than bending over. So, showing you guys from the back view once again. Not bending over to get to the bar, I'm instead focusing on sticking my butt out, keeping my back nice and tight, hinging at the hips. Just enough to grab that bar. Boom. And at this point, grabbing the bar about shoulder width apart, and then I'm going to pull slack out of the bar. So, all that means, guys, is that I want to make sure that there's as much tension in the bar as possible. So I do this by, from this positioning, tightening my back, keeping my arms long, tightening my back up, and that naturally puts my hips into position. If I tighten my back as much as I can and make sure that I'm taking slack out of the bar, full tension, boom, my back's nice and straight, come up, back down. And to give you guys a better idea of why we pull slack out of the bar, notice this. You guys hear that noise? If you're able to do that, then you haven't pulled slack out of the bar. So initially, a good way of thinking of pulling slack out of the bar is just to, first of all, just be pulled up on the bar. This you do by simply making sure your arms are fully extended. See, right now, if you guys can't quite tell, there is a little bit of bend in my arm. But if I make sure that my arms are as long as they can be, if I'm still grabbing onto the bar and my arms are fully extended, then it pulls that tension out of the bar initially. From this position, now that my arms are long and I can no longer make that noise, listen, can't really make that noise, right? Whereas before, but now, I can't do that because my arms are long. Tension, slack has been taken out of the bar, which creates that tension. Then from this point, I simply tighten my back up, boom, it puts me in the correct position. From this point, guys, if I let go, I should feel like I'm gonna fall back. That's how you know that you create that tension, by pulling the slack out of the bar. So, once again, putting it all together. Feet midway, we're gonna create that torsion with our feet. And you guys are gonna feel it. You're gonna know if you create that torsion with your feet, because once you start hinging at the hips, you're gonna feel it a lot more in your hamstrings and your quads because you created that torsion. Grabbing the bar, shoulder width apart, making sure that I pull the slack out of it, nice and tight, then simply tightening my back up, puts my hips into position, driving the bar up to my chest. Up, down, up, and down. Now you guys are gonna see what it looks like in real time with my actual working sets. I believe I have a 4x5 with 225 pounds today. So you're gonna see exactly what that looks like, putting it all together, keeping your focus on those main cues. First and foremost, cutting our foot midway with the bar, creating torsion with our feet. We're going to hinge at the hips to get to the bar. We're gonna pull the slack at the bar. How? By making sure that we're pulled up on that bar, arms fully extended. 5, we tighten our back up as much as possible, which if you're tightening your back up, will already put your hips in the position. And from that point, you pull. All right, guys, that's pretty much all there is to it. The last thing that I want to mention is that, as you notice in my actual working sets, I made sure that I kept my spine in the neutral position by looking down rather than bringing my head up. That's something that I'm still working on, just because out of habit, both on my deadlifts and my Pendlay rows, I have a tendency of looking up. There's a lot of controversy back and forth on whether that's worth doing or not. That's okay. We know that it does tend to help a lot of people with their deadlifts, just because if you're keeping yourself up in that position, it tends to help keep your chest up and your back tight, which helps you make, with pulling. And the same thing with the the Pendlay row, people tend to have an easier time pulling the slack out of the bar and keeping their back tight if they're looking up. But for the sake of just like, you know, more from a safety health standpoint, you want to do your best to keep your spine in the neutral position. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I was able to break things down well enough. I know it's a little bit unorthodox since I was doing this by myself, trying to change the tutorial game up. You know, can't always have somebody recording for you, so try to do what I could to the best of my ability. But yeah, that's it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you did not, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I can do to get better. Like the video, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch y'all later.